Hello, welcome to Evolve with Natu. My name is Natu, and am. I don't know what word to use. Excited. I think excited is the word to introduce today's guest. So, just to give context, I met Ashley yesterday for the first time, but I was so enamored. I was so moved by her and her story that I figured she will be a blessing to Evolve with Natu. So, without further ado, Ashley, welcome to my channel. Welcome to Evolve with Natu. So, if you don't mind, can you kindly tell the guests who are watching a little bit about yourself?
First of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm so humbled and so grateful and super excited to be here. A little bit about myself. My name is Ashley. I'm originally from Kenya, but studied in the UK and Canada, and now working here in Canada as a senior program officer with one of the programs at the United Nations Association of Canada. Prior to that, I studied law and also did a first master's in political economy, and then went on to do a second master's in global governance, specializing in international security and gender.
Awesome. You see how impressive her resume is. And I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about your age. Am I?
By all means, I'm comfortable.
So Ashley is 26, and I was just telling her I'm looking at my 26-year-old self. I was going through what I call a pre-midlife crisis. I didn't have it all figured out as much as Ashley has. And I figured part of the reason why I invited her here is I wish she could talk to my 26-year-old self or my younger self on how much she has navigated in life and learned and grown into the person that she is. And despite the quite an age gap between her and I, within the last 24 hours, I've learned a lot from you. So walk me through your degree from law, and then you did a master's degree to where you are right now. How did you end up pivoting to, or changing rather, the course of work? Because you used to dream of being a lawyer. You had a certain field in mind, and now you're working with United Nations, particularly in the realm of political economy. What happened?
Oh my days. So it's a bit of a convoluted journey, if I'm very honest. I think first things off, I always dreamt of becoming a human rights lawyer. And it was mainly born from a charity that some of my friends and I started when we were in high school that did activism from FGM and early marriages. And from then on, I was like, you know what, I'm going to go into law. I'm going to learn how to be an activist, and I'm going to come back and fight every single battle that we need to fight in Kenya, which was great. But the minute I entered law school, I realized I actually don't enjoy the law.
You had that practical experience and you're like, it's not for me.
It's not for me. I was looking at it, I'm like, can I really do this every single day of my life? Because it also sank in that all the law that I loved was the law that made no money. I loved human rights law. I loved criminal law. And I realized, okay, and it's so much more paperwork than I realized. And I realized I love people. So the more I started to think, I'm just like, maybe practicing law is not for me, but I still love learning. I still love the law. And then when I graduated law school, towards the end of law school, I started applying for a master's program. And it was so funny because everybody always told me, make a fantastic lawyer. You should keep on to this. I was like, okay, I'll apply for master's in law. I got rejected. I was like, okay, you know what? I love diplomacy. I love all those things. I love development. I'll apply. I got rejected. I applied, and then I started thinking, okay, if we have a business background, maybe we should just do marketing and business. I also got rejected. And I'm like, okay, God, I thought we were smart. I thought we got the grade.
I thought we had the plan here. What's going on?
Clearly, things are not working out. So I ended up applying and getting into a master's program now at The Hague, doing international development and diplomacy. So two things that I thought, okay, we can do this. But after getting so many rejections, I think I started having a crisis of identity and wondering, is this actually what I want, or just so much of what I was told I'm so good at? So I decided to take a year off and go back home and get some actual tangible work experience to figure out what I want. At the time, I got an opportunity to work for a legal and political consultancy firm. In working is when I realized, oh my days, I love politics. And I started asking everyone in the firm, what did you study? How did you get here? Everyone was like, oh, I studied political economy. I'm like, okay, never heard of this phrase, political economy, but you know what, we're going to give it a shot. I applied with the same personal statement, the same grades, and I got into 2 different programs for political economy, and I got a scholarship. So for me, that was God saying, okay, everything else you were doing, great, just not the door I wanted to open for you. And the minute I kind of started to align myself with the program that I guess God wanted me to take, not only did the door open, but the scholarship came with it. So went back to the UK, did that first master's. During COVID, I found out that my program is actually affiliated with a school here in Canada, and they offered me a place to come and do a second master's, now the global governance version. And it just kind of seemed to be so seamless because it kept being things I wasn't exactly pursuing, but were finding me already walking in my purpose, finding me kind of working hard and doing the things that I felt like I'm called to do. And then when I was in the middle of doing my second master's, I got an opportunity to do a placement with the UN, and they placed me with IOM Ukraine around the time that the Ukraine war was beginning. So I was actually meant to travel to Ukraine, and last minute my university was like, okay, the situation is really tense, so why don't you start off working remotely, and if things calm down, then we'll let you travel. And I'm like, oh, great. Everything. I remember literally being in a meeting with my supervisor at the time, and literally she's like, yep, bombs are hitting the office right now. Don't know when I'm going to talk to you next, but yeah, I'll see you on the other side of this bombing crisis. And I think that for me is what made everything so much real. That the things that we see on TV is not just a moment.
It's not what meets the eye.
These are people's lives. These are actual interactions that are going on. This made it so tangible. So I ended up working on a crisis action program with them. After doing my placement, the unit that helped me get to do my internship started hiring. And I realized I want to be part of helping other young people across Canada get similar experiences that I did, because it was such an eye-opening, enriching opportunity. I applied. By God's grace, I got the job. And now I lead the division. So I now work day-to-day working with different UN offices across the world to help other young people get opportunities to work, grow, and learn.
Man, your story is astounding. And I think you and I had spoken about this early, how much I related to whenever you think something is for you, whether it's an opportunity, whether it's a relationship, and God keeps placing all these roadblocks. And you keep thinking, I'm not good enough, I don't have this, while God is trying to tell you, I have something different for you. I have something better for you, which is the misdirection that took place to what is your purpose. So you also grew up in Kenya, and now you're living in Canada, you're living in the UK. So what do you think, what aspects of your upbringing, because you come from a background of your dad being a diplomat and your mom is a businesswoman, what aspects of your upbringing have shaped you to the person that you are today, including your faith, because I know you're very big on your faith as a Christian. So how have they shaped you into who you are and the journey that you're walking on?
That's a really great question. Oh, let me think about it. I think for me, 2 things stand out immediately. I think one is, because I'm very religious, I really stand by the verse that says, do everything as if you're working for God. Amen. I may not necessarily love my supervisors, I may not necessarily love my academics, everything, but I always came into the mentality that it's not about whether I like it or not. It's about striving for excellence, because I'm not working for myself. I'm working towards a higher power, and I'm working to honor that whatever's been placed in my hands, I need to work hard to honor that gift, whether it is what I want in the moment. Because I remember when I was working at the political and consultancy firm, I had to pay my dues. So there was a solid day where I remember carrying chairs, and I remember thinking, I have a law degree. Why on earth am I carrying chairs?
That humbling experience.
That very humbling experience of like, I have a law degree, but I'm still working as a receptionist. Or even during my undergrad, working part-time jobs as in a call center and being that annoying person that's calling people and saying, hi, do you want to do this? And getting insulted. But I'm like thinking, you know what? In this moment, it's not what I'm called to do, but it's what God has put in my hands. So I need to honor that. And I need to work really hard. And I've seen that just being transferring into even the bigger things that I'm doing, that mentality of working hard, regardless of whether the task is ... or the supervisor may not be the nicest person, still putting my best foot forward in excellence. And then from my parents and that upbringing, I think the one thing I respect about both of them is they always told me, do not think you're going to inherit my life
Amen.
Or do not think that, oh, I've succeeded, so your success is automatic.
It's going to be handed over to you.
My parents made me work for everything. I think my first job was when I was 8, typing letters for my dad. And that was like the only way I was going to get. This is the whole story of allowance. I never had it. It was, if you want something, you work for it. You work for it.
You got to earn.
And I think that's something I'm very grateful to both of them, because they taught me these soft skills. It was even housework, chores. If I wanted to get any little money for candy or whatever, I would do more chores. Not saying I don't do chores and every chore I did was being paid for. No, I would do extra chores to get an extra 100 bob, 200 bob to be able to do whatever I thought I wanted to do. So that instilled in me this discipline of work to get what you desire.
Amen. Amen. Now, you've talked about a lot of interesting things, and I could kind of tell where your values are, how your upbringing has shaped you into who you are. What would you say are the 3 top values that guide you in life when you're pursuing different ventures, be it career, be it personal life, other aspect of like your professional and personal life? What are the 3 values that usually guide you when you're moving forward?
I think we already covered the faith aspects. I won't talk about that, but I think for me, 1 is ambition. Okay. I always believe in going to rooms or being at tables where somebody that looks like me hasn't been.
Amen.
So I don't where some people is like, oh, I can't see anyone that looks like me, that can be intimidating. For me, it's like, why isn't there somebody that looks like me in that situation? And how can I ensure that I open another door for somebody else to look like me also come in? So I'm always trying to push boundaries and trying to push limits and say, you know what, this is maybe the box that somebody has put in me in. How can I surpass it?
Yes.
And I think for me, that's the ambition aspect that comes in. The second thing for me is integrity. I think, especially being a young person, there's so many stereotypes about our generation, about where we're either lazy, we don't have our priority right, etc., etc., etc. So for me, a big thing that I always try to do is just be a person who has integrity. Let my word match my actions. Let my personality always be something that will honor both my family, both my background, and all those around me. And I think the third one is honestly just being confident and not being afraid to be myself. Because I feel like growing up, I've always had people or relationships or situations try to tear me down. So I think there's a sense of self-confidence and belief that, you know what, this is me. I love me, and I'm going to take this version of me that I love the most into any room I go into. And whether you like me or not, that's your problem. My thing is to love myself. And so long as I'm doing actions that honor God, honor my family, then tough if you like me or not, because I love me.
Amen. I honestly wish I had you when I was younger, you as a friend. And don't get me wrong, I know I have you as a friend and a sister right now, but as my 18-year-old self, as my 20-year-old self, heck, as my 26-year-old self, I wish I had somebody who told me this, because one of the things that I struggled with, I grew up with a very healthy dose of self-esteem, naturally, I think, but going through different ventures in the world, that kind of got tore down bits by bits. And at some point there, I went through what I called an identity crisis and a few character developments here and there. They humbled me, they confused me, but here I am. So speaking of character development, Ashley and I were exchanging notes about our dating life.
Oh my goodness.
Believe it or not, there's a 10 plus age difference. I'm 38, she's 26, so 12, if I get my math right. And believe it or not, our experiences are very similar. As I don't know if it's as Black women, as African women trying to navigate a different world. So this is just me being candid. What would you say is the challenge of dating as a Black woman or as African or as a woman who was raised in a different world, and you're trying to find meaningful romantic relationships in a different world than where you were raised in? What do you think are the challenges? What are the bottlenecks that we are facing?
Honestly, the two that instantly come to mind is that, one, I don't necessarily fit what is considered the traditional African bride. Let me put it like that. So my mindset is not that, and I'm not saying that it's a bad mindset, but like when I'm dating some guys from home, is that they expect a certain type of Kenyan girl. And unless you've had similar lived experiences as I have, or traveled abroad, or maybe like had this like different outlook, and it's not an indictment or anything, it's not even a pride thing. It's a thing of that our expectations in a relationship are very different. Yep. And like what I'm looking for, as much as like there's some values of me, like I still desire to be a homemaker. For me, I'm not thinking that 6 o'clock my thing is I must be home to cook. So expectations in a relationship are sometimes very different. Yep. But then when I come sometimes to even the context here in Canada, I'm still expecting, for example, I'm desiring a man to take charge. I want a man who is very certain, who will still play that traditional masculine role in the relationship and give direction, whereas maybe that's in conflict and variance to expectations here. Yep. So it's almost that not necessarily like I have a crisis of identity in that sense, is that what I'm looking for is an amalgamation of both like the tradition and also this very contemporary westernized person as well. But then at the same time, I may not be as liberal as maybe some of the Western value system is, because a part of me that's still like, okay, I will not say I expect this. So it gets very complicated. And then I think also, at least on my perspective, I think I'm very open, but I don't think everyone is as open as I am to even maybe dating people from very different backgrounds and cultures and mixes. And of course, there's going to be sometimes a little bit of clash in culture, but I'm very, very open to that. But not everybody is as open to experiencing that other half that may be me. So it's a very interesting journey. I don't know if any of that makes sense.
No, it does make a lot of sense, especially for me. I'd say the first part. I was telling you that this weekend I was celebrating a very dear friend of mine who had a birthday. And while we were at brunch, one of my other dear friends had mentioned that part of the challenges of me finding someone is because I'm looking at the wrong places. I'm looking at a traditional, maybe African man, a traditional person who has an African or Caribbean descent, or Black from whichever walks of life. And I've been here for too long. I'm going to my 20th year, and my values are so westernized. So I'm looking at people who are trying, as you say, amalgamated. I'm looking for a traditional African man back. And I've even been told by some of my Tanzanian guy friends, people that I've dated, that, wewe ni mzungu sana, which is basically translated, you're too westernized or you're too Europeanized. And when I ask, they're like, well, one, you're very outgoing, which I'm like, there are also other Black women who are more outgoing. You like adventurous things. I like to bungee jump, skydive, things like those. They like their women, and maybe this is me being stereotypical, but you have to be quiet, you have to be demigod, you cannot be too ambitious, you cannot be this. And then when I come to the Western counterpart, there's a certain drive, I'm not saying they don't have a drive, there's a certain value system that I'm looking for that's not there. So I'm stuck between two worlds, and I'm like, I don't know what is it that I need to do. But at this point in time, as I said, I've decided that I'm going to live my life somewhere. Somehow there'll be a unicorn that might come up, and our worlds might mesh. But for now, I think I'm going to continue living my life. So now, speaking more on a personal side of things, we're still talking about relationships. What would you say is younger person maybe moving from Kenya, from Tanzania, from the Caribbean today, and they're venturing the dating world? What would you say is the easiest way for them to meet people? Not easiest, but maybe practical ways of them to meet people.
I think for me, I met most of the people that I've been interested in or engaged with in activities.
Okay.
Because like I know I'm a very active person, and because I'm looking for somebody who is both active and also ambitious as well. Like clubs, like walking clubs, activities, interest groups.
Read
That was
book clubs.
book clubs, interest groups, whether it was like playing sports. I played sports in the UK. So even just going for those recreational mixed teams is a really good place to meet people. Or even so for me, faith is very important. Young adults, like I think I probably met young adults circles or mixers at churches. I met like maybe 2 of my boyfriends in that environment. And I think it was solely because the intention of going to the activity or the meetup was not looking for a potential someone. So it was that they found me
while you're living in your world.
Exactly, living my best life, all of that. And then it was because they were also there for a similar purpose, we already had like a starting conversation point of like, I remember one where we met at a cheese and chocolate lovers club. Very random, I know. And it was solely the conversation literally started like, okay, what's your favorite chocolate? Like if we didn't have to like fish for something to talk about.
Have to feign interest that you actually don't have.
Exactly. And then even from there, like all the different activities I've done, like I would meet other guy friends who would then introduce me to like, oh, like, you know what, you seem to be very ambitious in this perspective. Then why don't I introduce you to my boy who's into this, who's into that? Which I find a lot more organic. I think a part of me is a little bit old school. Don't get me wrong, I have been on the dating apps. Like right now I'm back on one. So I'm not saying they're not great, but I feel like I find it more organic in that way. And I personally prefer it. Because my issue with dating apps is I feel like I'm having the same conversation over and over again, or waiting for somebody kind of to step up and actually ask me on a date without it sounding creepy. And finding that line is so much more complicated that I prefer this kind of organic situation.
I agree with you. Now, before we wrap this up, I have maybe 1 or 2 questions. One of the purpose of this journey, this channel. See, I want to say channel and journey, but I say journey. So maybe I'm creating a word here. Is highlighting self-improvement journey, self-development journey, evolution, whatever you want to call it. What is your mantra, or rather, what are the things that you do to make sure that Ashley is always improving to be a better person with your faith, with your finances, with your professional life, with your personal life? What are the things that you do? Or my brother also recommend to people, maybe people who are my age, people who are younger, anybody who's on a self-improvement journey or who's looking to improve their lives. What are the things that you normally do, or the practices that you normally leave on, a mantra that you leave on to make sure that you're being better every day?
So I think there's one that I really developed after walking away from a very toxic relationship. So it was a very toxic relationship I had that thankfully I was able to get out of that toxicity. But one of the things I developed as I was walking away is choosing to let go of bitterness. But also not just choosing, but also seeing the part that you play in every situation and how you can walk away and learn. Because I feel like especially in the relationships perspective, especially whether it's a friendship, a relationship with a significant other, a relationship with a boss, it's so easy to focus on what they did to hurt me
instead of the part you played.
Exactly. And the part you play can simply be I entertained them in my space longer than I should. So next time I'm gonna put safeguards in to make me have alarm bells to keep them in my space longer. Or it could be actually
you were the toxic person.
Exactly. I was a toxic person. Or I realized that actually this person, even if it's a friendship, has a trigger. And I kept pushing that trigger because it felt comfortable for me. So I think something that I'm conscious of now is always, before I walk away from a situation or right after I walk away from a situation, whether it's a job or a significant other, is sitting down and taking stock of myself. So that to ensure that even when I walk into a new relationship, I'm bringing a better version of myself. Because I think I heard this sermon once saying that every girl is looking for Prince Charming. Every girl is looking for a man after God's own heart. Yada, 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 yada. But if Prince Charming came, would he want you?
Yep.
And for me, it's taken me on a journey of saying, okay, if I realize that I have this toxic trait, now that I've recognized it, what can I do to ensure that I move away from it? Do I need to read a book? Do I need to take a course? Do I realize in work that maybe this supervisor was in my case because I was weaker in this skill. Okay, now that I've seen what was their pressure point on me, how can I make sure that my next supervisor will find me better than the last one? And that's kind of put me on this continuous journey of like, I'm not perfect, but it's not enough to just recognize that I'm not perfect.
What are you doing about it?
Exactly. Because I feel like sometimes we're so good to say, these are my flaws, take me as I am, yada yada. This is living my best life. Okay, fine, these are my flaws, but do they have to remain a flaw? And I think that's something I'm consistently trying to do as well.
I actually feel like you called me out because I went through a phase in my life where I was like, this is who I am. I'm very sensitive. This is who I am. I do things this way. And I had to just take a step back and I'm like, so what has your passive aggression really done to you? Like you've had a part to play in some of these relationships, whether it's a work, a relationship, a personal relationship. How are you? Because you can say I was born that way, but you were born with 2 legs and you were born with 2 limbs, 2 ears, but you're not born being passive aggressive. So how do you, and I think taking accountability, I love that you said about that because most of us, we're very quick to point fingers, but we're not quick to take accountability and admitting the part that you played and how are you going to evolve to be a better person moving forward. One last question, and it might be 2. What if you had to pick one word to describe yourself? What would it be and why?
One word. I would say go-getter. I know it's like a one word with a hyphen.
With a hyphen, I'll take that.
So I'm cheating. I would say go-getter because I don't believe that I have to only thrive in one sphere. Because I think the one thing I didn't mention is I'm very involved in pageants back home in Kenya.
Oh,
which is
so this is the part that I did not know, and I've spent little over 24 hours right now. I know your mom is involved, and I should have probably guessed that. Common sense is not always common, but anyways.
So, and I think it's the sense of like, I don't want to be in any box. So it's like, you know what, it's like, okay, I'm a huge nerd and I wanna do this and I wanna write papers and I write for journals and things like that and I wanna do this and I wanna do that. So I feel like for me it's like always seeing, okay, what else can I do? What else can I like see if I can thrive in? So that's how I kind of describe myself as a go-getter. Also in terms of even in relationships, I will not lie, I can be that girl that will make the first move. I can. Because I still believe that I'm very traditional in the sense that I believe the guy should make the approach. But best believe I will happily suggest that I'm open to your approach. So I feel like I'm very go-getter in every aspect of my life.
I admire that about you. And I think one of the things that you said that resonated with me is being boxed, which is something that I've thought of all my life. Being a very outgoing person, being bubbly and stuff. I find that some people have placed me in a certain box. And whenever I mention that, oh my God, I love reading books, people are like, oh, you love reading books. We just thought you liked to party. I actually love cooking. They're like, oh, you can cook. You can actually cook. I'm like, okay, a person is multifaceted. Exactly. Just because I'm one thing doesn't mean I'm the other. Now, I promise, Ashley, this is the last question. If you had to recommend one book for people to read, I don't know if you're a reader, but I'd like to think with the nerd in you, any book, whether it's a self-help book, whether it's a romantic novel, like what book would you recommend and why would you recommend that book? A book that maybe has changed who you are, has impacted you in one way, shape, or form.
I think for a character development aspect in a positive way, I would say Soar by T.D. Jakes. It just really helped me see this perspective of moving from level to level.
Amen.
And then in terms of an academic, just because I'm just a bit of a nerd, let me throw in a bit of a nerd book, Bad Samaritans. Bad Samaritans is a political economy book that talks about how there's a lot of control going on in the way that money is passed around the world. So if you're very interested in why maybe decisions are made the way that they're made and the history behind why aid, for example, is so significant in some areas, or why there's financial manipulation going on in the history behind that, phenomenal book.
Bad Samaritan. Who is the author of that book?
I don't want to butcher his name, but I believe it's Hu Jing Chan, but I am so sure I probably butchered that extremely. But if you just type in Bad Samaritans, it would it's an old, very infamous book, and it looks kind of like a little bit like a novel, but it's actually a very good technical book, but it breaks down like economics and political economy in very layman terms, which is why I really loved it.
Amen. Ashley. I wish this didn't have to end, but Ashley has to get back to work. It's been a treat having you on Natu's Corner, and I know you and I will definitely, our paths will cross again. For people who are watching Ashley and I, she's headed to bigger and better things. So I hope you're watching her, and I hope that you see something in her, whether you're a potential suitor, whether you're future employer. I hope you see how much of an amazing person that she is. That said, thank you so much for tuning in. If you have not subscribed to my channel, I'll be honored if you do so. And kindly don't forget to share this channel with your family and friends. Make sure that you like and you leave me a comment about the things that you like and the things that you like to see in the future. Thank you so much and have a lovely day. Bye-bye.